Okay, this is going to be a little strange because it's going to look like I am looking off to the side here. As you can see from my screen, the purpose of this video is to walk you through your first written response to an article of the week. Now, you have multiple options depending on how your brain prefers to analyze a text, and so you're going to want to pull up on one half of your screen your fully annotated article of the week. Don't forget, please, that you will submit your annotations on Canvas. And the second thing you want to have opened is your template for Article of the Week responses, which you will find on Friday, September 4th on Canvas's agenda. Alright, so just looking at my annotations, this is the level of engagement I'm expecting to see on your text. You can see that basically in terms of my notes on the screen, as I'm reading, what you see in blue highlights are places where I've marked how each of the paragraphs in that article are functioning. So this second paragraph is, the purpose of that is to explore the social impact of pandemics. And the main idea in this paragraph is that the plague leads to a surge in licentiousness, which is kind of morally ambiguous behaviors or morally risky behaviors. Do take the time to look up and note the definitions on your margin whenever you come across a term that you don't know. And again, that will just support you as you move through your studies and acquire those Tier 3 vocabulary terms that you are less likely to encounter in spoken dialogue, but you are very likely to encounter in grade level and adult level texts. Alright, so moving on to the function of paragraph 3. Paragraph 3 really surveys the impact of pandemics on healthcare. Paragraph 4 explores the financial impact of pandemics, and in terms of historical context, it brought about the end to feudalism. Paragraph 5 discusses the impact on American expansion. So we were able to actually purchase the Louisiana and some of those southern territories from France because Napoleon was struggling economically. Paragraph 5 is a survey of a different kind of historical pandemic. This one is viral, not bacterial, and it's sort of, I forgot to highlight it in blue, but this explores the impact on global wars and the interplay between the Spanish flu and both the development of World War I and the sort of the historical inevitability of World War II based on some of those economic tensions at the end of World War I. Okay, so paragraph 5 shifts a little bit in terms of function. It brings us to the current period. We're looking now squarely at COVID-19. The authors of this article are trying to look to the past in order to understand how COVID may impact our culture in terms of social impact, historical impact, economic impact, and impact on healthcare. So you'll see some of those ideas brought into our awareness in that final paragraph. But let's look at the writing prompt. At the bottom of each of your articles of the week, you will see 3 options generally for your written response. Your first option is, how do you think the world will be different after the pandemic? And you will want to explain your answer. As you're doing so, you're going to want to pull in some of the ideas that were presented in this article of the week. So what you're doing essentially is you're jumping into that conversation that was started in this article. And I feel that if you think of your writing as your continuation of that conversation that was begun by the authors, then you will be able to achieve full credit. Now, this is a freer written response that's designed to just get you into the habit and into the practice of engaging with ideas in writing, in your own writing, and developing your own skills as a writer. So for some of you that will seem way too open-ended, and if that's the case, you're going to want to pick either option 2 or option 3, because I was able to provide you a template for those 2 options. So those 2 prompts say either pick a word, line, or passage from the article and respond to it, or discuss a move made by the writer in the piece that you think is good or interesting, and explain that. So if you look at your template, this is a very specific structure that you can use to frame your ideas if you are a reluctant writer, or if you're in the position of not knowing where to start. This is a structure that you can use. So in each case, I've given you some sentence starters and a space for you to work out your own ideas. So this is kind of a 2-step template. Here's an example. So the first thing you want to do, the first sentence, is you want to answer the prompt using language from the prompt in your own answer. You want to include title, author, and genre, and you want to include a larger so what, so that you actually hit that level of analysis and you're not just skimming and summarizing the article. This will go deeper than summary. So here's how you might approach that. If we're looking at prompt number 2, you're going to want to highlight key terms from the text. I'm going to do that by just turning the color blue. And then from this point forward, I'm going to use the paint roller. So this one we need to pick a passage and respond. So this is still a little bit free, but it keeps us focused on one passage. So I would say if you choose prompt number 2, you want to respond to one idea in one of these paragraphs. So you may choose any of those 7 paragraphs to respond to. And in this case, you're going to do you're going to jump into the conversation that's just started in that paragraph. So let's start with just the framing paragraph. Will COVID-19 change the world? If I'm choosing to respond to number 2, I want to set it up in this simple way where I embed the title, author, genre in, and I launch my answer. So in the week's article, How Pandemics Change Society, the editors, I've given you some verbs to choose from. At the bottom of the page here, you're going to see a number of verbs, power verbs in purple. And basically what they're doing, if I can just do a little quick think aloud, is they're looking to history in order to understand the impact of COVID on culture, through these 3 different lenses: economy, cultural, and political impacts. Alright, so if I'm going to pick a verb here, I'm going to say they're describing the impact of COVID through a historical lens. Alright, I'm going to zoom up here and write that down while it's in my mind. They are describing historical instances of pandemics in order to help us understand the social, cultural, and political changes COVID-19 may have on our times, on our time, on our present day time. Okay, so basically you want to copy and paste that. It might be rougher than that, and that's fine. That's how the writing process goes. The first thing we worry about when we're writing is just getting the ideas on paper, just like we're sculpting. You want to throw the clay down on the bench so that you have all those raw elements to work with. You don't worry, you basically map out the proportions before you worry about any details. So if you're a reluctant writer, that might help you. Just think of getting your ideas down with this structure before you worry about anything like word choice or does a sentence work or anything like that. That will happen at the end after you take all of your Frankenstein, and I say this with pure respect because, and I say this addressing my own writing, you're writing when you're generating your ideas, when you're getting your ideas down on paper. They will be rough, they will be ugly, they should be rough and ugly. We don't write perfect prose when we're dealing with really important, deep thoughts. We sort of throw them down on the page before we worry about that process of revision. Once you get this template filled out, you'll then stitch together like Dr. Frankenstein. You'll put together your paragraph of ideas, you'll read it through, and at that point you'll polish it for sentence level concerns, for any kind of those kind of editing or critical roles that you take to present before you present your ideas in writing. Alright, so that's how we will spend today. Please send me an email if you have any questions about the template, about using the power verbs, or about this assignment. And thanks for watching this tutorial. I will see you soon. Bye. And I have lost my dialog box to turn this